Welcome into the Fantasy Draft Room. I am Cody Smith at Cody Smith TFDR on X. And it is a beautiful day because the Fantasy Draft Room, after about a year and a half long hiatus, is finally back and putting out videos on YouTube. I'm super excited to do this one. It doesn't mean I'm going to get back into doing long-term content on here that we're going to extend all the way through the season, but I really wanted to highlight and try to bring to you guys something that I've done for the past 5 or 6 years here, and this is going to be projections for 2025. So we're going to be taking a look at all 32 teams, every player who's fantasy relevant on the roster, and a lot of ones who probably aren't even fantasy relevant on the roster, but we won't really dive into them. You'll just be able to see them on the screen. Before we get into it, if you want access to this sheet in full, everything is built out to where it shows all of the players in an individual page for their ranks for their individual position. You can look at all of these teams for every one of the 32 teams out there, except for the Cleveland Browns, because they're done, but they're not fully done yet because I have no idea what to do with that quarterback room yet, but almost all 30. We'll call it 31 and a half teams. But putting that note in there where I do have these all listed out in rankings, that brings up one of the things that I want to talk about in this first video that I won't talk about in the other ones, so they'll be a little bit shorter. But that is that rankings and projections are two very different things, in my opinion. You can use whoever's projections you want. I would recommend never using projections as rankings purely. They can help you drive those decisions, but they should not just be used as a one-for-one lateral. I'm going to build my board off of this. I don't do it that way either. What projections are for me is building a baseline for what the offense is and what it's shown me historically. And by historicals, you'll see whenever we get into this first team here with the Buffalo Bills, a little bit more of what I'm talking about. But at its core, projections are really just based on what I'm doing, at least, is the last 3 years of data, if we have data back that far. And a lot of everything is going to be driven off of that. Obviously, you'll have some changes whenever new quarterbacks, offensive coordinators, rookies get drafted in. A lot of those things will drive what changes from one year to another. But at the end of the day, if somebody's shown me who they are, I'm not really going to project for anything different going forward. And projections also give you a really good cap of what is realistic for the offense, unless they have just an absolute outlier season. So whenever I'm talking about those outlier seasons, my projections will never show you that a Jaden Daniels is going to finish at quarterback 4 like he did last year, or the CJ Stroud breakout. One, because I just don't have historicals on them, but that is not what it's kind of a median outcome for rookie quarterbacks whenever they came in. They're setting some of the best rookie seasons we've ever seen from quarterbacks, and those are not going to be represented in projections. They're also not going to tell you some of the injury risks. Now, I have some of those, like you'll see here, Dawson Knox is only at 15 games and not 17, but obviously once you get into the season, there's a plethora of things that can change within an offense. OCs can get fired, head coaches can get fired, players can get injured. There's so many things that can drive so many different levels of variance within an offense that true projections should not be used as rankings, because there's a lot of upside that's not going to be captured here. And you can have your own thoughts and opinions about what players have that upside. I'm just not going to do too much of that here. Whenever I have historical data to back up what I'm trying to say here, that they've shown me over the course of the last couple of years and going forward for what I project for this year. Again, just wrapping up, don't take them as I'm saying this player is projected to finish out at this rank. It is what he's projected at for me, but I'm not drafting them that way because I know each player has a level of volatility that's not going to be captured here. So finally, with that spiel, we can dig into our first team here. Buffalo Bills are the first team that we're going to do. We're going to be starting off with the AFC East here over the next couple of days, hoping that I can do 32 teams in 32 days of videos for you leading up right just to the start or just past the start of the preseason for the NFL, probably not counting the Hall of Fame game, because I think we're already past 32 days until that starts. Football in a month, baby. Let's go. But also let's go for the Buffalo Bills. And we're going to start off each of these teams with a thing that I call offensive historicals in one of the sheets that I've built. And this is really going to be looking at a 3 or 4 year average between the offense, what it has been, but looking at 6 key categories that I really look at, or 6 key stats. And that is pass attempts, rush attempts, RB rush attempts, RB targets, wide receiver targets, and tight end targets. So you can kind of build out each one of those rooms individually, gather at a broad level how the offense wants to operate, how it's changed over the last couple of years. The 3 year historical, if you have data going back that far, luckily for this team, we've seen a ton of Sean McDermott. I know he's obviously an offensive guy, but we've seen it's been Ken Dorsey and Joe Brady really leading the charge here. We've got a year and a half of data on Joe Brady, and he's still going to be the offensive coordinator going forward for 2025. So without further ado, let's get into this data as it appears on your screens. 558 pass attempts over the last 3-year average, 478 rushes, 335 RB rushes, 93 targets to the running back, 329 targets to the wide receiver, and 108 targets to the tight end. The big thing that you'll see here in a large swing is that passing attempts went down from 520 from 579, and then all the way back in 2021, 655 passing attempts for Josh Allen. So that's drastically reduced almost each and every year. He fell flat in 22 to 23, but another pretty big step down, 59 pass attempts lower in 23 than 24. And there's a little bit of variance in that, at least with Josh Allen specifically. The total offense here still did pass for 520 attempts, but Josh Allen didn't complete every game. You had a couple of Mitch Trubisky showings in there whenever they were probably, I guess, blowing out teams. I'm not going back to look at each individual game log for that, but 520 pass attempts for the whole team. The rushing attempts did also come down, so we're seeing just a total number of lower plays run by the Buffalo Bills in 2024 versus 2023, slowing the pace down a little bit or just not being as efficient to keep drives going. Either one of those. Obviously, they were a very good defense, so maybe they're just scoring more and scoring quicker. That could also be another thing that's driving this. But we really get this 3-year average to try to drive everything, and then now we can get into the individual players, and where we'll start with every team is going to be that passing attempts number, because that really kind of drives everything, especially obviously in all of the receptions and targets and everything like that. But even a pass to rush rate kind of gets built off of that one as well, based on the total number of plays that you can project for the offense. So let's get into our first player, obviously starting at the top, Josh Allen, and he is going to come out as QB1 in my points per game rank for the 2025 season, my QB1 in Dynasty, my QB1 in redraft, QB1 in projections as well. Everything is beautiful in the world. He's going to come in at 564 passing attempts. Now, if we're looking at his stats individually as a passer over the last couple of years, we see 567, 579, 483 passing attempts in 2024. Like I said, a little bit of Mitch Trubisky in there to not go up to that total 520 number. But if we're looking at that over the last couple of years, I'm coming in at 564. So definitely a rebound back towards what he was doing for the last 2 years before 2024. And we'll see if that offense really does level up the number of plays that it has in 2025. But I think that number is much more closely aligned to what they want to do. Now, obviously, they're running it not a little bit more. Their just total plays went down. So I think just a little bit of a backwards or a positive regression here for Josh Allen in the offense as a whole, and the total number of plays might do the trick for us here. So 564 is the number that I settled on. And a lot of that also is just once I build out all of the receiving work, I sometimes have to come back in and add in a couple of passing attempts, add in a couple of completions. But let's go into that completions number with 564 passing attempts. That's going to come from your completion percentage. So looking back over the last 3 years at that, whenever we're looking at Josh Allen, and I'm losing my page here. Let's go. Completion percentage over the last 3 years, 63.3, 66.5, 63.6 with a career average of 63.5. So definitely more aligned again towards that 2023 season, where we saw the passing attempts even rise. We also saw the efficiency with those completions rise. We're not going all the way back up, though. We settled at 65.25 for the completion percentage, which leaves us with 364 completions. Now, using this number, we then use our yards per attempt and our yards per completion efficiency metrics, or their secondary metrics, but it is how efficient he's really throwing the ball, and they're generating yards from the wide receivers. So we can use these numbers to try to build out how many yards we have. We settled at 4,380, and that is based on 7.7 yards per attempt and 11.9 yards per completion. Looking back at, again, the historicals on the bottom left of your screen, we see those numbers are really, they're taking a little bit of a step up, 7.6, 7.4, 7.7 in the yards per attempt. That's bringing up to 7.77 and an 11.9 yards per completion. That's going to be actually pretty close to what he was last year, and even exactly what he actually came out as in 2022. So you could see something that resembles that. But obviously, if you're looking across, the numbers are completely different year to year and where they're matching up, or if they do match up. But it's all built off of the yards, total yards, attempts, completions, everything gets kind of built into that. The 29 touchdowns, if we're looking back over the last 3 years, this number is going to be pretty close, or at least the last 2 years, 29 and 28 touchdowns. We did see the drop down from what he was doing from 2020 to 2022, where he was throwing in the mid 30s, but it still doesn't matter because he's still rushing the ball and he's still QB1 or QB2 every single year in fantasy. So I have no issues if the passing touchdowns don't elevate, but I think this is much more in line with kind of a new Josh Allen in the offense that we're seeing going forward. Interceptions, we throw them in there, but they are one of the most unsticky stats like we're seeing here from last year or in 2024 to 2023 to 2024. A difference of 18 to 6 interceptions. So they definitely got a lot more controlled, or maybe Josh Allen elevated in his game. We're probably not staying all the way down at 6. There's only been probably one quarterback that stayed that low in interceptions all career long, and that is Aaron Rodgers. And I still don't think Josh Allen throwing the ball is as good as Aaron Rodgers was in his prime. So he's fantastic, and don't hate on me for that one. He's a fantastic quarterback, probably my favorite quarterback in the NFL to watch. But sticking at a low interception rate of 1.2 like that, when you show me over the course of your career, you're typically sitting at a probably 2.5, a 2.3 for his career average. 11 interceptions does feel about right as a little bit of a median regression from what he was in 23 to 24. His rushing profile, obviously one of the things that drives his fantasy production. I have him coming in at 107 rushing attempts for 570 yards and 9 touchdowns, 5.33 yards per attempt. And if we're looking back again at that rushing profile for him over the last couple of years, he's rushed for 124, 111, and 102 attempts. Yards on that by his yards per average is sitting at 6.147 and 5.2, a career average of 5.5. So a little bit lower than the career average. He's getting a little bit older. He's certainly not at an age for any concern, but it comes in as a number that it's pretty close to his career average. So 570 yards and then the 9 touchdowns. We've seen Josh Allen rush for a lot more than this, 15 and 12 over the last 2 years. His first years weren't nearly that high, but we did see the James Cook probably drop him from that maybe high 15 number to 12. And then we might see that drop down again if James Cook does continue to eat rushing touchdowns. I won't say that he's going to lead the league in rushing touchdowns like he did last year, but do think that Josh Allen might have a little bit lower. We just have a little bit less efficiency of the offense. They had crazy amount of touchdowns last year, obviously, as the offense was incredibly efficient, but still well within the range of historicals for Josh Allen there at 9 touchdowns. So now we can get into the running backs, starting off with James Cook again, as we're looking at the offensive historicals for this one. The rushing RB attempts has been 335 over the last 3 years, 364 in 2024, just as a reminder there. So we're coming in very close to the 2024 numbers at a total of 367 RB rushes. And obviously the lead back here is going to be James Cook, as long as I guess he doesn't hold out. I don't think there will be any chance that he's holding out in the course of the season on a rookie contract. Obviously could, but I'm definitely not projecting that, and I can't really put it in there until we see that would potentially happen. Again, don't think it will. James Cook, though, if we're looking at his historicals in his first 3 years in the league, obviously we can kind of nix that rookie year whenever he only rushed the ball 89 times. The last 2 years, 237 attempts in 17 games, 207 in 16 games. Now, even if you take all of his stats and elevate it up to a 17-game pace, he did not exceed his stats in 2023 except for that obvious one category, and that is rushing touchdowns, coming up from 2 touchdowns in both of his first 2 years to 16, an absolute explosion on the ground for James Cook and in the pay dirt. And definitely one of the things that I think is going to come down. I'm still putting him in at here with 10 rushing touchdowns on the ground. He does come in with 228 total rushes for 1,097 yards at a 4.81 clip. Looking at that comparatively to what we've seen, he's coming in right around the same number of total attempts. Obviously, those touchdowns are coming down, but his yards per attempt is sit at a 4.7 and a 4.9 the last 2 years. Putting him at a 4.8 kind of just middles the number. I don't think there's going to be any true elevation back up to what we saw from like that rookie season whenever he's taking on this much of a workload. 4.8 is still very good as a yards per attempt clip for a running back, though. And we'll just go into his receiving so I don't have to jump back and forth between these two categories of the rushing and receiving for each player. We'll go to James Cook, and if we're looking back again at that offensive historicals for RB targets, that number has come in at 93 over the last 3 years, definitely driven by 2022 when they were all the way up at 111. 86 and 82 the last 2 years. So we're coming in at 88, a little bit of a bump up, but definitely not anything that's going to change all that drastically for the passing attempts that went to the running backs. So James Cook coming in here with 40 targets. If we're looking back again at his historical 54 to 38 targets over the last 2 years, that might be having to do a little bit with Ray Davis coming into the offense. So again, on a 16-game pace, 38, we can bring him down just a little bit. We put him at 40 here, and then we can look at his catch percentage. He's sitting at a career 78.2, over 80 in each of the last 2 years. So putting him at an 82% complete reception percentage feels good here to bring him to 33 receptions on the year. 8.33 yards per reception is where we're going to finalize that one out. And that's going to be a little bit lower than where he was in 2023, but higher than he was both in his rookie year, not his rookie year, just higher than he was last year. So bumping him up, a little bit of a positive regression, but definitely not too much when you're only talking about 33 receptions for a running back. And then 3 touchdowns. He had 4 in 23, 2 in 24. We can kind of middle that number to give him 3 for James Cook to come out as the points per game 10th best running back currently in my overall projections for the 2025 season. Probably a lot of that driven by the 10 touchdowns and 3 in the air. That's a pretty good number for him. So we can then move on to the sophomore, Ray Davis. And in his rookie year, we see he went for 113 attempts, 442 yards, 3 touchdowns. He also had 19 through the air for 17 catches, 3 touchdowns there. And I don't really think that there's going to be too much of a change here. I actually dropped his rushing attempts a little bit here down to 102 with 421 yards at a 4.13 clip for 4 touchdowns. I just don't really see much of a reason here why they would deviate from what was working so well for them in the running game last year. I don't think Ray Davis is going to have this ascension that's going to take in or overtake James Cook to where he's eating in more of a rushing share than what he was getting last year. It could happen, but outside of injury, I don't really see that one rising up for Ray Davis. Still a very good RB2 if it were to come to that, but I do think James Cook has every opportunity to get exactly what he was getting last year. Not too much change within the running back room here. He does come in as a little bit of a bump up from his rookie year from the 19 targets to 24. Again, the catch percentage, he was, pretty damn good with it last year. Whenever he was bringing in 89.5% of his catches, we bring that down to 83.3 a little bit. 8.2 yards per reception for Ray Davis. We're talking about 11-1 last year, and an incredibly efficient receiving back, honestly. Even though James Cook is a good receiving back, Ray Davis was arguably better. An 11.1 yards per reception clip for a running back is pretty damn high. So we'll bring that one down to a much more reasonable 8.2 over the course of 20 catches. Again, three touchdowns last year and 3 touchdowns this year for 2025. We'll also get a little bit of work in for Ty Johnson here, a little bit on the ground. He's used much more historically as a pass catcher, third down back type of guy. So he's going to eat into that work as well. If he were to go away for some reason, obviously raises up James Cook's floor, raises up Ray Davis as well. But Ty Johnson, I don't think they're going to just eliminate him out of the offense. He's definitely an integral part of what they do, especially on those third downs. With that, we're not going to worry about trying to go into why Frank Gore has 3 rushes and Reggie Gilliam has 3 rushes. I don't think that that's purposeful to this format or to this show, so we can dig into the wide receivers. We'll start off here. I have them a little bit out of order whenever I built this one up, because I do believe Khalil Shakir will still be the top receiver for this team. I don't have Keon Coleman. He has a little bit of a step up, but nothing that's going to overtake what I believe Khalil Shakir is, and that slot safety blanket type of guy for Josh Allen that he has loved through all of his career. 116 receptions for 90 receptions. If we're looking back at his historical for Khalil Shakir, he put up 100 targets in 15 games only last year. So that number comes in honestly pretty close to what he would have been on a 17-game pace last year. His catch percentage has always been high to get at that many receptions on only 100 targets last year, 116 for this year. That's what I'm projecting out. 75.8 for the course of his career, and even that crazy 2023, 86.7. Catch percentage is ridiculous for a wide receiver. So we're leaving him up here at a really, really high 77.6 catch percentage, and then 1,071 yards. 11.9 yards per reception for Khalil Shakir over the course of his career. He did drop down pretty significantly from that 16.1, 15.7, all the way down to 10.8. So we're bringing him back up a little bit, 11.9. I don't think he'll be playing it as close, or maybe he'll have a little bit more yak here to what he was showing us the first couple of years. And finish up Khalil Shakir, increasing him from 4 touchdowns to 5 touchdowns for 2025. For Keon Coleman, we're looking at his rookie year, 13 games played, 57 targets, 29 receptions at a crazy 9.2 yards per reception clip for 4 touchdowns. We're definitely going to bump him up just one because he's only playing 13 games last year to a 17-game pace, and that's going to result with him getting up to 89 targets in this offense. The catch percentage is still low here. It was pretty rough last year, only at 50.9. So we're bumping him up 5 percentage points more in the catch percentage range. And that's going to bring him with 49 total receptions, 837 yards. I can't project for him to go to a 19.0 or higher. So we're shaving off about 2 yards per reception here, bringing him into 837. Obviously a big play guy. I think it's going to continue, but definitely has some negative regression involved unless he's literally just the most efficient receiver we've ever seen in the NFL over the course of his career. And then bringing him in with 4 touchdowns. Last year, we saw him with 4 touchdowns as well. So, I mean, you could either give that extra one to Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman. Either way you go, I don't think it's bad. Maybe with only 13 games played, and he had 4 last year, you could give probably the extra one to Keon Coleman. But I love myself some Khalil Shakir, so I'm probably going to give it there. Not going to dig into it too much here, but it will be very interesting to see how these 3 play out between Josh Palmer, Elijah Moore, and Curtis Samuel. I do have Elijah Moore coming in and eating a lot of that work we're seeing of what we've seen from Curtis Samuel. Elijah Moore coming in with 51 targets, Curtis Samuel at 21, Josh Palmer really taking over what I believe is kind of that Mac Hollins role and still garnering 60 targets for 35 catches, 531 yards, and 3 touchdowns. We spread out a little bit of these numbers between the other guys. Like I said, I don't think Elijah Moore is really going to elevate into a top tier usage guy for this team, but still right along there as a wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 for this team with Josh Palmer. The numbers kind of work out here. This is what they've done historically, using about 4 or 5 guys on the offense. And then we'll see what Curtis Samuel does. I think he might be tailing off towards the end of his career, unfortunately. So there might be a little bit of a drop here with this 21, but we don't have that much to spread around, even if he does take a little bit of a drop off and then starts going down into the teens or single digits whenever we're talking about the number of targets he'd be getting over the course of the season. So with that, we can go to our final position and go into Dalton Kincaid. I don't have him getting back to that rookie year. He's really close to what he was doing in his rookie year. If we're looking back at 2023, where he had in only 16 games, 91 targets, 73 receptions, and 2 touchdowns for 673 yards. That was a really good number, but with the offensive pieces that they brought in, bringing in a Keon Coleman, a lot of those receivers that I was talking about, and then just the step down that we saw from him, playing definitely injured a little bit. I'm not going to say that he's going to miss games again whenever we're going into 2025, but I don't have him getting back to that rookie year, and I don't have him really taking that jump up to what a lot of people are still kind of really hoping for to see from Dalton Kincaid. I just have him kind of where he's been over the last couple of years, at least whenever you go back to the healthy portions of that. So he's coming in with 87 targets for a 68.97 catch percentage. And that is going to be looking at he's over the course of his career, really low, honestly, pretty brutal, 58.7 catch percentage in 2024. So we see that jump back up a little bit closer to what his career average has been from that rookie year. A little bit of a bounce back in that department. And then 11.07 for his catch or yards per reception. And that's going to be a jump up as well. I think Dalton Kincaid, if healthy, can play a lot better than a 9.2, 10.2 guy. I mean, that's a little bit based into obviously how they're using him a little bit shorter to the field. But I do believe he's athletic enough to get a little bit more out of this usage for the tight end. Anything above 11.5 or so for a tight end is probably starting to push boundaries that like George Kittle is only reserved for. But I do still like this at 11.07, giving me a little bit of a bump up here to 664 yards and 4 touchdowns. We have seen him put up, just in terms of touchdowns, 2 and 2 the last 2 years. But I can see that number. Obviously, he's a big tight end, a red zone threat. You can obviously use him there. And then Dawson Knox, not going to dive into this one too much. We do only have him at 15 games. I'll try to mark all of these just to make sure that all of these projections, whenever you're looking through them, if they do have less than a 17-game projection, and again, as I'm talking through that, if I'm putting them for less than 17 games, it's probably meant that over the last 2 to 3 years, they've never really shown that they can complete a 17-game pace. we have seen differences in that. Players who we're labeling as injury prone can then get healthy, like a James Conner type who was never completing anything close to 17 games. And then he goes out there and plays a full 17 at his oldest age in the league. So it can happen. But once you start to show it to me for a couple of years in a row, I'll probably dock you a couple of games to what your kind of average games per year has been. He comes out with 26 catches, 18 reception, 26 targets, 18 receptions, 197 yards, and 1 touchdown for Dawson Knox. Also throwing in a little bit of Jackson Hawes here. They love to use their tight ends. It used to be Quentin Morris, who was always catching at least like 1 touchdown a year. So we'll see if Jackson Hawes can kind of step into that role and be one of their specialty kind of trick play guys whenever he's out there. Definitely loved myself some Quentin Morris, and I think he's on the Jags now. So maybe they can use him in the same way, but maybe we can also see Jackson Hawes kind of step into that one. Obviously, if he doesn't even make the team, then he can just get, it'll be redistributed elsewhere. But that is it. No, we'll actually just recap for you the total numbers for the team. Again, Josh Allen coming in with 64 passing attempts, 368 completions, 4,380 yards, 29 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. On the rushing floor for the team, 481 rushes for the team, 2,291 yards, 4.76 yards per attempt, 24 touchdowns on the ground, 549 targets for the receivers, or all of the receiving options. This number is going to differ, again, from that passing attempt, because you do have things like throwaways that are not accounted for whenever you're looking at the total number of targets that are going to each individual player. That number typically comes out at about 15. And actually in this one, I did have it coming out to 15 exactly over the course of a 17-game season. 368 receptions, 4,380 yards through the air for, again, that 29 touchdowns. That's going to give them a total of 1,045 plays and 53 total touchdowns on the year. Everything is complete now with the Buffalo Bills. Thank you all for listening so much. This has been an absolute blast. Again, I'm going to be trying to do this series over the next 32 days, 32 teams. I'll be trying to get a little bit of a backlog. So if I have a day off here or there, I'll be able to still push out a video to y'all. Hopefully y'all like it. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, complaints, anything in the comments down below, definitely drop them in there. I will probably not reply to you if they are complaints. No, I will take them into consideration, because this is definitely not a fully refined product that I am putting together. Again, I've been doing it for 5 or 6 years now, but there are always things that I'm still even trying to implement into this sheet now, ways that I can improve. And I know that all of y'all out there are very intelligible. If you're listening to this, probably y'all are intelligible enough to probably understand and sift through all of this data alongside of me. But again, I'm trying to just put this into more of a media form, so that way you're not just looking at this massive spreadsheet where you're just overwhelmed. Even upon opening it, you don't even know really where to start. I can kind of go through the process a little bit more about how I get to these numbers. The Buffalo Bills were a pretty straightforward team. There will be a lot more in the future episodes about how some of these things will change, especially, again, quarterbacks, offensive coordinators, head coaches. A lot of those things can change. We don't have too many moving pieces here in this offense. So it's probably a good one to start with, just to get a baseline down for how this show is going to go. But again, really do appreciate you all for tapping in. I'm not even going to ask you for a like and whatever. No, don't do it. If you don't like it, don't like it. I don't care. No. But if you do like it, there'll probably be another video out tomorrow. So stay tuned. You can subscribe if you want, whatever. Don't really care. So do appreciate you all again, though, for tapping into this one. And I'll see you on the next video. We out of this thing.